I go?
Yes, go for it.
I hope you leave enough room for my fist, because I'm gonna ram it into your stomach and break your goddamn spine! Yeah!
An old cowboy went riding out one dark and windy day. Upon a ridge he rested as he went along his way. When all at once a night he heard a rap steezy song, plowing through the ragged skies, up a clouded throng.
No power in the verse can stop me.
What's going on, guys? My name is Aldeniro, and welcome to episode 61 of The Midnight Hour. I'm joined today by Jack.
As always, forever and always.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna change.
We're going to be talking about creepy fairy tales today. I want to start this episode off by saying that last night / early this morning I had the second instance in my life of sleep paralysis. It happened again. And it's definitely the weirdest, trippiest thing, possible. It's so fucking scary. I feel like I experienced it, on a much more amplified level than I did the first time. It felt a lot more eerie and stuff. So my bed faces my bedroom door, and I sort of woke up, essentially, it felt like it was about 4 o'clock or so. And the light was on in the hall and my door was open and someone was closing my door, and I thought to myself, well, that's great. I don't know how I fell asleep with the door open, but I'm glad that someone's closing it. And the person who was closing it stepped into my room and then closed it and turned around, and they were wearing a blue corporate shirt, and their face was not really visible, but their arms were in some weird sort of crab-like state, like they were up.
Okay.
As if you have your hands on your shoulders and then you've just got your elbows sticking out.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, and it started crawling onto my bed.
Fuck
its
that.
mouth was foaming and everything. And I couldn't move at all. And I was screaming, but I was actually making a noise that was the only thing that I could do was and I was trying to scream, and that was the only noise that would come out, and it was incredibly harrowing and terrifying. And eventually I remembered reading that you can move your hands, and I moved my hands. It was so fucking weird though, you just physically cannot move, and my heart was racing and everything, and then I eventually rolled over onto my stomach, which is the position I always sleep in. I never sleep on my back, because if you sleep on your back you get sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
So oh my god, it's terrifying.
Man, that sounds fucking awful. I'm so glad I sleep on my back all the time. I always have, and I'm so glad I've never had sleep paralysis, because it really sounds like something where I'd just be like, nope, no sleeping on my back anymore, and it's the best way to sleep.
It's very it's really happening to you. You're completely awake. I know you're in a semi-sleep state, but the way that you feel is the exact same as being awake. It's actually mental. It is fucking mental that is a thing that happens to normal people. It's so weird. Both times it's happened to me, I genuinely think it's been a result of stress, because I'm so fucking stressed at the moment. I'm finishing up my job on Thursday. And I want to leave my work, I want to get everything sorted out, and I also have to train people in on my job, and I'm just not good at training people, because I'm not good at people, so it's a bit.
To be honest, training people is the worst thing in the world.
It's so hard. I don't like it.
Yeah,
at all.
my job was incredibly simple, and even training people for that was a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. But
I
was thinking when you asked me today, what topic are we going to go with? I was like, well, fairy tales are pretty scary, contrary to popular belief, or contrary to Disney-fied belief, I suppose. And I wanted to talk a little bit early on about how, if you think about it, the whole concept of sleep paralysis would surely have given rise to, like, the birth of a lot of these stories. Like, I'd imagine that the whole idea and notion of ghosts and demons and spirits and stuff must have its roots in sleep paralysis. Like, I am sure that numerous tales have been written and become truth of some kind due to someone's because, like, if I didn't know what sleep paralysis was, I only heard about sleep paralysis from fucking Darren Brown on some ghost TV show that one time. If I didn't know what it was, like, I think I would be shook. Like,
Yeah.
It's actually really bizarre.
Yeah, definitely.
And, like,
yeah,
crazy thing.
Thankfully, I've like, you know, like I said, I've never experienced it, but it does not sound like a whole bundle of fun.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form.
I think a good place to start off would be. I just want to say early on, fairy tales, like a fairy tale is defined as a type of short story that typically features folkloric fantasy characters like dwarves, elves, fairies, giants, gnomes, goblins, mermaids, etc. And I don't really know why, like, fairy tale. It's said like fairy tale, but it's fairy tale. It's a tale that involves fairies. It's where it comes from. It's always something that has its roots held in folklore and stuff like that. And two of the most popular fairy tale creators are the Brothers Grimm. I don't know why they're called the Brothers Grimm and not the Grimm Brothers.
Grimm Brothers.
I wonder, does the word grim come from their sort of dark, atmospheric tales? Like, it's quite a fitting name for it to.
Yeah, it could definitely be possible.
Yeah.
Whether or not pseudonyms and stuff like that were a thing at that time. I haven't researched them enough to know whether you know, their names being pseudonyms is actually a thing, or whether they were.
No, it's Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm.
Yeah.
Are their names. Yeah, like, I kind of thought that they were just some kids writers, but they were actually, like, academics, and, like, they have an absolutely insane Wikipedia page. Their tales were adapted and used as propaganda by the Third Reich, and they're used, studied by psychologists and stuff like that. Like, I think they were actually really intelligent guys, which is, like, not surprising, but you don't really think of it that way, I suppose. I think a good one to start off with would be Sleeping Beauty. We all know the story of Sleeping Beauty, which is why Jack is going to tell it.
We all know the story, so I'm going to throw Jack in completely unprepared to tell the fucking.
I don't know
story
what it
of
is.
Sleeping.
Like, she's in the forest and falls asleep, and a prince wakes her up by kissing her or something. That's what.
Yeah,
it is,
that's the basic. That's the basic gist of it. It's not. I was just trying to figure out whether it was the one. I think I'm getting confused with Shrek being the whole, you know, in the tower guarded by a dragon.
That's Rapunzel.
That's the one.
Yeah. See, I've never seen the Disney movies, but Shrek seemed incredibly relevant to me.
Yeah. Shrek, to be honest, is an adult film disguised as a children's film.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it has an excellent soundtrack.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, that's the basic gist of Sleeping Beauty. Enchanted Bites and Enchanted Daffodil, is that Snow White? Fucking hell, they all roll into one to me.
Yeah. Well, the Disney versions are very much the same person.
Yeah. She basically falls into a sleep that only her true love can wake her from with a kiss.
Yeah, which is a lovely.
Yeah, that's not too bad. A little bit rapey. But...
Well, wait till you hear the original version.
Yeah.
While Snow White just said Snow White.
Snow White. This is going to be a long podcast.
Well, Sleeping
Beauty.
Not
in the way that everybody usually likes them to be.
While Sleeping Beauty was in her unconscious sleep state, she got impregnated by a monarch, like, which is literally rape. So she was raped, basically, and when she woke up, she found out that she was a mother to two kids, twins, I'm assuming. what happened was she fell into a sleep state from a thorn or like a splinter that was stuck into her finger, and that triggered something in fairy tale land that put her into like a sleep state. And one of the kids pulled it out, and that's how she woke up, which is just really, really strange. But yeah, so that all happened, and the guy who impregnated her actually was married to someone else, and his wife tried to kill Sleeping Beauty and the kids, but the king was like, no, you can't do that. And then in the end, Sleeping Beauty marries the guy that raped her, despite him being married, and then they all live happily ever after in true fairy tale fashion.
Yeah.
So like,
There's a bit that I've just read on one of we've both got open a few like list kind of things, as we usually do, from people who've actually done proper research into these kind of things.
Yes.
But the one that I'm looking at says the king later kills his wife to be with Sleeping Beauty, and in brackets next to wife it says, who tried to get him to unknowingly eat the children.
Right.
So at some point she either killed the children or attempted to kill the children and cook them for him to eat. Which, you know, as if it wasn't as if the whole, you know, rape of a, you know, unconscious girl, and then having, and it says here also that the child sucks the splinter out from under her fingernail.
Yeah.
Which is also just a little bit odd.
Yeah.
But yeah, to add to a whole other level, some cannibalism involved for everybody.
Oh really?
Yeah, some mild cannibalism.
It's interesting you say cannibalism, because in the Brothers Grimm version of Snow White, which is where I jumped the gun earlier on,
okay,
the dwarves actually like were closer to the video.
There was actually 8 of them until one cold winter.
So have you ever heard "Son" by Rammstein?
Yeah.
Have you seen the video to it?
No.
It's actually a great like adaptation of the Snow White story.
Oh really?
They're all sort of slaves for her, and like they're drilling in some coal mine for her and stuff like that, and it's amazing. It's really, really good. Rammstein were such a like such a class band for their ridiculously cheesy sort of gimmick that they had going on. But in the Brothers Grimm version of Snow White, the stepmother was tortured by being forced to wear red hot iron shoes and dance until she literally falls dead. They also said that Snow White is 7 years old, which is quite weird because Prince Charming comes along and seduces her. The stepmom in the Brothers Grimm Snow White was actually a cannibal as well. She wanted to eat Snow White's liver, lungs, intestines, and also she wanted to drink her blood. So that's in the Brothers Grimm version. And like I really feel like there must have been some kind of cultural significance to all of this brutality, but I can't really point my finger on what it was. It's around the 18th century, and I don't really know. Maybe like I know kids were sent to the mines and stuff like that back then, so I don't really know, or I don't really think that parents needed more stories to frighten their children with, so I can't really like figure out what the purpose of these gruesome fairy tales is. And like because I've known about this for quite some time, that fairy tales have really, really gruesome and brutal origins, and that their original versions of their stories are just unbelievably brutal. Like this is like a Japanese horror movie. Like this is a thing that wouldn't be out of place in a really fucked up movie.
Yeah, you saying about the about, you know, Snow White's stepmother wanting to you know, eat her and stuff like that and drink her blood reminded me of did you say that these were written in the 1800s?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, the Brothers Grimm were active from the late 1700s to like the mid 1800s. So yeah, like it would have all been around that time. Yeah,
because, and I think we've talked about this woman before. She was active as a murderer in the late 1500s, early 1600s. Elizabeth Bathory, or Countess Elizabeth.
Oh yeah, we have.
She holds the Guinness World Record, which is an odd phrase to say, but she's the most prolific female murderer. The number of victims cited is around 650, and she would kind of bathe in virgin's blood and stuff like that to try and keep her young. So she did predate the Brothers Grimm by a couple of 100 years. So whether that's also they are actually picking bits and pieces from history, whether that kind of thing would be known to them.
Yeah, but do you feel like no one's making movies about things that Hitler did? Like people are like mirroring Nazism in various movies. Like even the Star Wars universe has a sort of a Nazi element to it. Like you can see that speech that Donald Gleason makes in The Force Awakens. That's very much Third Reich inspired.
Yeah. The uniforms are all very Third Reich as well.
Yeah, and the red flag behind things like that. But that's not like they're not like gassing Gungans and like torturing sand people and things like that. Like it is odd. It's a really odd. I suppose it's just the way the culture moves and things like that. Like I'm sure that in the future they will wonder why the 21st century just went fucking mental with post-apocalyptic fiction and zombie fiction. But it feels like these are just especially bloody. You know what? It could also be like the French Revolution was incredibly bloody, and even the Irish Revolution and stuff like that. So maybe it just comes from, maybe it was like a literary coping mechanism for a society that had been subjected to so much bloodshed. Yeah. But they just seem like especially brutal.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I find it even more surprising that they've actually managed to last. Like that they've been adapted and changed so much. Like why not just use new stories with new characters? I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, and it's interesting. Like, don't forget that they were accustomed also back in the day, as it were. They were accustomed to, public hangings were like an event to go to.
Yeah.
Public executions were an event to go to. They were. I'm not going to say a day out.
Well.
But you know what I mean. They were. Death was a lot more death and that kind of like a very. I hesitate to use the word grim, but a very kind of downtrodden.
Yeah.
Kind of lifestyle in general was a lot more commonplace to them.
Yeah, I suppose so.
So that might have something to play into it. Also, tempted to say with certain things. I mean, they're all. I'm not sure if I'm just taking it for granted that there's kind of this whole almost like Hansel and Gretel, for example. It's kind of like a tale of almost. It boils down to a tale of strange danger, right?
Yeah.
And obviously that's probably always been a thing, really. Not to trust people outside of your tribe, or or your family, people that essentially. And I feel like it's human nature of hyperbole and it also kind of simplifying things down for children to understand, as well as exacerbating them to make them sound a lot worse than they might necessarily be.
Yeah, sort of like the Daedalus and Icarus flying too close to the sun.
Yeah.
Like, listen to your parents; they know best.
Yeah. And then this is what happened to the one kid that didn't.
Yeah. Which in the original version of Hansel and Gretel was called The Lost Children, and it was from a French writer, and the witch who sort of lured the kids into her gingerbread house. Is it gingerbread house? Is that Hansel and Gretel?
Yeah, that was Hansel and Gretel.
The witch that did that is the devil who wants to bleed the children to death on a sawhorse.
Yeah.
If you don't know what a sawhorse is, look it up and imagine bleeding to death on it. It's very, very brutal. So they pretended not to get on, or sorry, they pretended to not know how to actually sit on a sawhorse. So the wife of the devil went and did it, and then they slit her throat, and they take all her money, and then they run away. So
as you do.
it seems to me like in that story, the moral is fear the devil. Not only should you not trust strangers, but you should also fear the devil. So, like, that's a thing that's going on.
Yeah, I think what already talking about this and researching this has made me realise is that most of the story, fairy tales that I'd rattle off the top of my head are either written by the Brothers Grimm or Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah. And even then, not all of them were written by those people. Like, they were adapted from those people.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just what we've come to know as fairy tales, is actually just a sort of a quintessential, like, list of tales that come from a very particular source, rather than... Because there are so many things that fit the concept of a fairy tale. Like, it's really not a thing that you can accurately describe. It's just a thing that you know what it is when you hear the term fairy tale.
Yeah.
I find that interesting.
I think the Hans Christian Andersen's Wikipedia page also puts it quite nicely. It says that called fairy tales, and his stories are called sometimes called fairy tales in English, which express themes that transcend age and nationality. Which I think I'd agree with.
Yeah, I think so.
That's perfectly fair. But yeah, like some of these, like you can just there's quite a few lists of fairy tales and their kind of darker origins. Obviously, they've all been very much dulled down to and softened a bit. But Hans Christian Andersen's version of The Little Mermaid, one of them I'm looking at now, as the quote, "Before the sun rises you must plunge the knife into the heart of the prince. When the warm blood falls upon your feet they will grow together again and form into a fish's tail and you'll be once more a mermaid."
Yeah.
Plunging a knife in, you didn't see that in the Disney film.
No, and in the original tale for The Little Mermaid, she meets a sea witch, which is like a witch, but in the sea. And she wants a pair of legs because she's come into contact with this prince who she actually saved from drowning. And he didn't know who saved him from drowning. He didn't know it was a mermaid. He thought it was this other girl. So anyway, the mermaid knows that the prince likes her because she knows that the prince is happy that someone saved his life, but she doesn't know about this other girl who's claiming the credit for it. So anyway, she meets the sea witch who says, "You can trade your tongue for legs, but your legs are going to feel like you are walking on daggers all of the time. And if the prince rejects you, you melt into sea foam." And then
Which is like the worst part of the sea.
Yeah, exactly. It's the worst kind of foam as well. So
yeah, exactly.
And then she says, "Oh, okay, I'll do that then." So she gets legs and fucking walks agony the entire time looking for the prince. And then she does find the prince, finds out that he's with another woman who he believes saved her life when in fact it was Ariel who did. And she confronts him about it. He says no, she melts to sea foam. Fin. That's a pun because Fin's in the sea. But that's how it ends.
Yeah. Let's not forget that he's amused by this, the fact that she can't talk, and she dances for him in excruciating pain, and he just kind of keeps her around for a bit until he marries this other woman, and then after the whole excruciating pain and suffer of emotional rejection, she turns into sea foam.
Yeah. Which
is just a lovely way to go.
It is.
But, they were never gonna... Everything needs a happy ending, and especially that one I don't think is so much a children's fairy tale, because I'm not sure what the lesson is there. Don't trust a sea witch. Yeah. Because it ends up... It doesn't end up kind of, happily ever after.
I think I think maybe we have a tendency to try and attach a moral to certain stories because they have such cultural significance.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to assume that perhaps these are just stories that are gruesome, and the whole point of them is that they're gruesome. Like, that's kind of their gimmick. There's no greater lesson to be had or anything like that. I think if you look for a meaning in certain things, like, you'll actually come away with really fucked up messages from it. Like, you can immediately see that, say, in Little Red Riding Hood, in the original story of Little Red Riding Hood, Little Red Riding Hood finds the wolf, and he's in her bed or whatever, and then she gets naked and gets into bed with him, and he eats her, and that's how it ends. And, like, the whole point of that is telling women to, like, maintain your virginity and stuff like that. But I don't know if that was the original message that they intended, because, like, you know, like Jurassic World, the most recent movie, like, there is a story in that movie, like, there is a plot, like a lesson to be taken away from that movie, that if you're a woman, and you don't, if you're a woman and you pursue your career, like, you're never going to have kids, and there's no point in you, and you're wasting your life and stuff like that. And, like, whether people think I'm being, like, overly sanitized and I'm being offended and stuff, like, that's a true thing that's in that movie. That I don't know that the writers put that there to say, like, I don't think any of the writers were like, yeah, my fucking bitch wife doesn't want to have kids. She just wants to do her career.
I feel like, and I don't want to sound. I saw Disney recently released the largest study of screenplays ever to have taken place, and you can filter on this website based on a decade and the amount of, and then you can filter by genre as well. But you can filter, mostly what it is about is filtering by how many of a certain gender and age group, how many words and lines they have in the script.
Yeah.
And I feel like, obviously there's been, if you go back to like the 1960s, the 1950s, and you search for women over the age of about 30, you're not going to find almost any films where they've got more than about 10% of the lines.
Yeah.
Which, is understandable for, various reasons. But I do sometimes feel like there's a female character a bit shoehorned in, almost.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was the case with Jurassic World. I don't think that they chose to. I don't think the character as a person was shoehorned in, but whether that kind of narrative that you're describing was kind of shoehorned in.
Yeah, I
as
feel
an
like
afterthought.
It's a very much rushed subplot where they were like, oh, we have to ascribe some kind of emotion and thing for this person to do. And I don't feel like these fairy tales were affected by that kind of thing. I think they were just very much a straightforward, like, look, this fucked up thing is happening, and we're gonna write about
here
that.
Here it is. This is what it is.
Yeah,
this is
like,
how it is.
It's like some kind of weird, like, stoner rock was written. It's like someone invented a whole new genre of music, and the whole focus of it is on being different and warped and like a contorted version of what you're used to. I don't know what fairy tales were for the Brothers Grimm before they adapted the fairy tales.
Yeah.
But, like, in the Pied Piper, it's sort of a famous story about a man who gets hired to get rid of some rats. And then once he does that, the villagers don't pay, and he decides to get rid of all the children in the town. As a sort of a fuck you, pay me type thing. And in, like, the modern version of that is that the kids follow him to some cave, and then eventually he gets his money. And in the original, he led them all to a river, which he drowned them in. So
it's a little bit worse than just kind of going, okay, now give me the money and you can get them back, and just going, well, I'm gonna drown them.
Yeah, and is the motto there something like, if you hire a contractor to to build an extension on your house, like you better pay that guy, or else
Because
has
he
the power.
will steal your children and drown them.
Yeah, or like he just has the power to like murder people in your house or something like that. It's weird how we consider, well, I don't say me because personally I'm not affected by it in any way, but a lot of people are like, oh man, like Tim Burton has really like edited this fairy tale to make it so dark and edgy, and in actual fact he's just making a way lighter version of something that already exists.
Yeah, it was already super dark.
Yeah.
And I think again it is our perception of what is dark and what's not. I think that we have a lot less of as a society, we have a less kind of cavalier attitude towards death, or we have this kind of, we want to really skirt around the idea that, you know, at the end of the day we're all going to die. I think with, you know, with all the shortened lifespan, or the shorter lifespan that was probably more common, especially, you know, kind of illnesses that could wipe people out completely.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of things that we could easily fix with antibiotics now. I think that led to people being a lot more kind of upfront.
I'd say
about
you're
death
actually
as well.
really right about that. I'd say that just in the Dark Ages and stuff, it's just I don't know like what specifically the Dark Ages entails, but I do specifically mean like the era where these fairy tales were written.
Yeah.
It probably is just in response to the cultural bloodshed that was happening around them. I can't really see why it wouldn't be that. I feel like that's what everything is. Everything that society produces is some reflection of what the attitude of the society is at the time. And that must be the case with these fairy tales, because they've obviously achieved some kind of everlasting popularity where they just will not die out, even if the version has to be altered to be tailored to the society that is currently on the receiving end of it. But it seems like it's very difficult for something to take its place in the fairy tale genre. I feel like that genre is pretty much sewn up by a few things, and it is not really possible to get in there as your own thing now.
Yeah.
And like, if you do, you can't really be anything like the originals that had inspired you to do it either. It's just a very tough thing to get in.
For sure. But I'm not sure anyone's out to write fairy tales, as it were, because like I said earlier when I read the part from the Hans Christian Andersen Wikipedia page where it said that they're the morals that transcend kind of time and, was it genre?
Yeah.
I think they've all been written, and you can't reinvent the wheel, as it were. You know, all of the reason that the fairy tales that we all know and the fairy tales that Disney have remade and, you know, everyone is aware of, the reason they've stuck about is because they are, I'm not going to say perfect, but, you know, they embody the moral behind them in the best way possible, for now anyway.
Yeah.
And until that changes, I don't think we'll see any new fairy tales, especially not in our lifetimes anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something that I would consider to be a modern fairy tale, and it's actually really hard. And I don't mean a thing that was invented now that you'd put as a fairy tale. I mean something that's going to have a lasting impact on society.
Yeah.
And not society, because that sounds very like you have to be affected by this fairy tale. I just mean one who's moral, and just even characters and the strangeness of it is going to be carried forward to the next generation, because it just doesn't seem to be happening. Like, I think even like Tim Burton probably came closest with stuff like Corpse Bride and things like that. But even then, I don't think society's held on to that at all. I think Tim Burton's kind of developing, or Tim Burton's gaining more and more of a reputation for being a one-trick pony, which, like, I'm fine with, because I don't really care for his work at all. But that's, I can't really think of. I'm probably forgetting something really obvious, though. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that about talking.
I have the feeling, though, speaking of, you know, modern fairy tales, is that the more aggressive versions and the less Disney versions are going to fall to the wayside as people, because we kind of grew up with the Disney films, as it were, and I know you haven't really seen any of them, but we grew up in that kind of time frame where the Disney films is how we learnt those morals.
Yeah.
To a degree. So I think that as our generation grows up and then shows they're not going to read their kids a bedtime story that will be like the Brothers Grimm book or anything, even mildly similar, even kind of a Disney book version. They will see the Disney films instead. Yeah. So I think that the Disney films will actually take over from even, this middle ground that probably just predated us slightly.
Yeah,
of fairy tales.
So. Yeah, it's hard to like pinpoint when fairy tales stopped being sort of the thing that people turn to over like movies and stuff like that. I feel like Frozen has definitely made a massive cultural impact and it's kind of given new life to that genre. And it's really interesting because it's a little bit of a spin on it too, because it's two princesses, which I don't think there has ever been two princesses in the same Disney story before. This song is called Lullaby, and it's a cover of the original is by The Cure, and this cover is by a band called Editors. A lot of people probably know who they are. They were pretty popular about 10 years ago or so, but it's very, very fairy tale-like, so listen to the lyrics because they're scary as fuck and just insanely creepy, which goes with the theme of this episode. But the conversation is about to shift towards the movie industry and how it's changing in line with the way that fairy tales have changed over the years. So I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. If you are, please do leave a like, and I hope you guys enjoy where it goes, and I'll catch you at the end of the episode, so I'll talk to you then.
Softly through the shadow of the evening sun, stealing past the windows of the blissfully dead, looking for the victim, shivering in bed, searching out fear in the gathering gloom, and suddenly a movement in the corner of the room, and there is nothing I can do, and I realize with fright that the Spider-Man is having me for dinner tonight. Closer to the foot of the bed, and softer than shadow, and quicker than flies. His arms are around me, and his tongue in my eyes. Be still, be calm, be quiet now, my precious boy. Don't struggle like that, or I will only love you more. But it's much too late to get away or turn on the light, 'cause the Spider-Man is having you for dinner tonight. And I feel I'm being eaten by 1,000 million shivering furry holes. And I know that in the morning I'll wake up in the shivering cold. The Spider-Man
Yeah, and in a similar ilk to what I was just saying, and you saying about modern fairy tales, I think possibly something like Wall-E.
Yeah.
Very current, destroying the world, kind of all of that, consumerism, all that kind of those messages about consumerism and global warming and all that kind of stuff. I think that has the potential to become, I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it's kind of the same caliber, but it's on a similar plane as the rest of the Disney films, but it's not quite a fairy tale.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah. So
I think that's the closest thing I can think of anyway off the top of my head to a modern fairy tale anyway.
Do you want to talk about any creepy versions of fairy tales that you found?
I think you've covered a ton of the bases, because we could literally go on and on about every other.
Yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. So
no.
Let's talk about current adaptations of things from the past and how they change to fit this society. Because I feel like we're really having a sort of a cultural race to the bottom to see what can be the most gritty thing out there in the world. There have been so many remakes of Batman that fit each society at the time that I find really interesting. The Tim Burton one, not so much. It's kind of just a Tim Burton thing where it was interesting because it was atmospheric and dark. And even though a lot of people say Jack Nicholson's Joker was wacky or whatever, at the time that was a really dark movie. It was actually it wasn't a wacky sort of camp version of Batman. It was a dark one that really resonated with a lot of people, and it was seen as a sort of a rebirth for the superhero genre in general. Batman and Robin and things like that helped to destroy all of that was happening. But the Batman, is it Batman Forever or is it Batman and Robin, the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, where the whole city of Gotham is this sort of psychedelic wash of color and vibrancy, and it's this really strange sort of flourishing dystopia. And that was at a time where the movies coming out were movies like The Fifth Element, and sort of I feel like it hinged closer to sci-fi, and sci-fi was the thing of that era. Not just sci-fi, but closer to say steampunk or cyberpunk, like movies like Hackers and things like that. Yeah. And then it gets to The Dark Knight, which is just the grimmest, grittiest, dark version of Batman that there is. And it's actually crazy to think about how it's almost like they're shoehorning those characters into sort of societal observations. When Bane hits up the stock exchange and he sort of rattles off this rhetoric about he was just a few sentences away from giving it the whole "we are the 99% occupy Gotham Street" thing. That was all very obvious what he was doing there, I think. And even Batman in The Dark Knight, where he does that sonar navigation thing, that is obviously a reflection of the NSA and the global surveillance, and it was a part of that discussion, and it was saying that this is what the American government wants to do, is that they need to see all of this so that they can do this, and then they can destroy it or whatever. And it's that's not really how it works, but there's so many things that when people look back on, they might be very confused about, and it will just seem like a movie, but those are quite clearly cultural observations.
Yeah, I think it's especially now, especially pointing out all those cultural observations, especially with the news cycle as it is now, where 24-hour news is such a prevalent thing. Yeah. Stories come and go so quickly. You could hear about a story for maybe 3 days in a row, and then it'll be gone.
Yeah.
And forever. That'll be it. That's the length of a news story now. Even something massive.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah, it really strikes me as odd, especially we had that whole Panama Papers thing recently, and I haven't seen a headline for it within, and it's been less than a week. I haven't seen a headline for it for the last couple of days.
I don't even know what that is. Oh, is that the WikiLeak about the David Cameron and his funds being...
Yeah, not just David Cameron, but it's, the companies all over the globe.
Yeah.
Like, rich people all over the world and stuff like that. But yeah, like...
Yeah, that story is already winding down.
That is absolutely massive. Like, that is the largest leak based on corruption that the world has ever seen. And it's almost gone again already.
Yeah.
People just don't care as much anymore. But, that's why I think South Park, even though I'm not a massive fan, I think they're really impressive in the fact that they can kind of put out episodes that are so relevant so quickly.
Yeah, that's one of the
obviously
biggest draws of the show.
they fade away kind of really quickly, but then obviously if you've seen them at the time when they came out, then you'll understand all of the references.
Yeah.
But I think that's why a lot of films don't put references to things that are happening at the time, especially with how long it takes to make a film.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
can write a reference or film a reference, and by the time you finish editing it, it's 6 months out of date.
Yeah, that's it's
yeah.
Just, I just had a thought there about the internet and how people can now sort of edit things in real time. And it made me think, like, if I upload the Midnight Hour and there's a copyrighted song and because of that it's blocked in several countries, I can edit that out of the YouTube video while it's on YouTube without taking it out. Now I don't, because that's effort, but it's a thing that I can do. Kanye's album, The Life of Pablo, is the first album to ever hit #1 based on streams alone. It hasn't sold a single physical copy and it's hit #1, which is a groundbreaking feature. But the interesting thing about that album is that it's the first album ever that's been modified in real time. Tracks have been altered, tracks have been removed. The entire shape of that album has changed from its release date, which was only like last month, and it seems like it was so fucking long ago. So that's happening. He also added in like new verses on tracks the day that it was streamed. For the very first time at his fashion event in New York City, the album was streamed, and in the actual release date, the next day, there were lyrics that were changed to reflect the event itself, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah.
And you have that Suicide Squad movie coming out, and they're recutting that. They're reshooting scenes from that, which I find to be... I don't think that's a good thing that's happening there.
I think for the Suicide Squad thing, I think it's great that the studio has paid attention to the kind of feedback that they got from the people seeing the trailer and from early showings, like pre-release showings, so that they're kind of going, okay, we've made a good film, but it's not the film that we wanted to make. We're going to throw a bit more money at this and do it right. I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think too many revisions is definitely a bad thing, and you come too far away from it even being recognisable as the film that they started out with. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it has the potential to be a huge like clusterfuck of. I think overall there's the potential there for it to lead to a reduction in the quality of movies, and it could normalise desynchronized movies, like things that are blatantly out of place because of cuts. Like there's lots of movies that deleted scenes have basically like ruined the movie. You know what I mean? Like, I find that to be something that is... It has the potential to just lead to a reduction in the quality of movies, and that's something that I'm concerned about.
I definitely, you saying that, worry about the idea that if other studios see that Suicide Squad did it this way, then they could think that, well, what if we... I'm not sure they'd think it this way, but, what if we save some money and almost half-arse production?
Yeah.
And then if no one has any complaints with it, great. If they do, then we'll just be like, oh yeah, so we're reacting to your complaints and your comments, and we're, reshooting and adding scenes and changing things.
Yeah.
I think that's a slippery slope, but I'm not sure it will ever come to that, just because of the extra effort and the uproar that might come based on that.
I think there's a time when it could be possible.
I
want to go back as well to what you were saying about how the the Panama Papers thing.
Yeah.
And how it's sort of just it's essentially like normalized apathy at the moment. Like people are just like, I think people are so over being outraged at the government that people are just like, oh, whatever. But I find that really interesting, that there's this sort of cliche or stereotype towards younger people that they don't care about politics, they just care about taking selfies and doing things like that. And like pretty much every young adult or every teen dystopian movie is the exact same movie, and they all reference cultural apathy, and they all reference this teenage protagonist who is the only person that sees the world for what it truly is, while everyone else is taking selfies and falling in line and things like that. And they're all just the same fucking movie. And I've fallen for this. I've fallen for it like 3 times. I've seen Divergent, right, which is a god-awful film.
Oh, dear.
I've seen The Maze Runner, which is a better film, but it's still a bad one, and ultimately the exact same as the other one. And I fucking got tricked into watching The Fifth Wave, which is literally the most unoriginal, predictable, awful movie I've seen in the last maybe 5 years. I could not get over how bad it was. And there's nothing really wrong with the cast either. It's just that they sort of bleed into this young heartthrob like type element, and it's like The Fifth Wave, like all of these new movies think that because they're adding a female character that's the thing, that like that's all they need to do is just oh look, it's not the same as this because it's a woman that's in it now, and like that's not the case at all. It's great that women are getting more roles, obviously, but that's not enough to make your movie an original thing, like and that's something that they all just fall back on. Like Chloe Grace Moretz is probably a really good actor. I've only ever seen her as Hit Girl, and like she is great as that. But The Fifth Wave is not a reflection of that at all. It is a bad movie. And from now on, I'm going to have to make sure that every movie I watch is not a dystopian teen. Because, like, dystopian movies used to be my favourite types of movies. Like Equilibrium and The Matrix and those types of action. Even going back to, like, Demolition Man and movies like that. But no, the new ones are bad in quality. Like, they're very similar, and they're very... I don't understand how they continue to rake in the cash, to be honest. Yeah,
I think it's like, and it's been said for the last like 5 years, as far as I can remember, is that Hollywood has run out of ideas. Yeah. And they are rehashing a lot of old films that they've got. Not that a lot of films aren't rehashes of just like Shakespeare and stuff anyway.
Yeah, but it's getting worse now.
Yeah, it's definitely getting worse, because I think in the modern day, they want to pump out as many summer blockbusters as possible, as many big movies as possible. It's become less of a thing about getting out decent quality films as getting out as many as possible with the biggest stars. Yeah. Which you can just see from the amount of shit that gets put out, the amount of films that no one cares about, really.
Yeah.
Like,
if you look at the top highest, in fact, we'll do it right now.
Okay.
Highest grossing movies of 2015. I am gonna say that, like, I'm gonna say that maybe 90% of them are probably sequels or prequels or things that already exist in the cinematic universe somewhere. So you've got like Star Wars, Jurassic World, Avengers, Inside Out. I don't know what that is, so I'll leave
Inside Out is actually a fairly unique idea from Pixar.
Okay.
I studied it slightly as part of my dissertation, but yeah, it's actually quite unique. So, like, going down the list, Star Wars is the 7th in the series. Jurassic World was shit. Avengers: Age of Ultron is a second in the series. Fast and Furious 7, 7th in the series. Minions is a shit spin-off.
It's a spin-off, yeah. It's something that already
spin-off.
exists. The Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games Part 2.
Don't get me started on the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah. The Martian's based on a book. Cinderella. I mean...
I think The Martian is
like-
fine. I'm fine with The Martian being there.
Yeah, because it's not been done before.
Yeah, but see,
it's still based on a book.
the
It's not,
bad thing
original.
about The Martian being there is that it is like it's original and it is unique in its own sense and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To me, it just felt like an ordinary space movie. But we've had this discussion before.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know that I'm not seeing something there. I know that I'm wrong because enough educated people have told me that they think it's wrong. Like, I don't think I'm better than people or anything like that. But The Martian only got the budget that it did and everything because of Ridley Scott. And if you notice, there are movies like what's that movie with oh man, what the hell is her name? The girl from I can't even remember what show she's from. The show that Chris Pratt is in with Anna Faris.
Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, Parks and Recreation. So there's a girl in that with black hair. She's like a comedian girl.
Okay.
It might not even be Parks and Rec. It's the time traveling movie.
That's vague. Are we talking about Aubrey Plaza here?
Aubrey Plaza, right? She's in that time traveling movie where it's about an advert. A guy put an advert in the paper like
Safety not guaranteed.
Safety not guaranteed.
We
Right?
got there.
The guy who directed that movie
Mm-hmm.
went on to direct, I believe, Godzilla.
Jurassic World.
Jurassic World, okay. So
Yeah.
the guy who directed Godzilla directed another indie movie called Monsters, which had a budget of $100,000 or something like that. And it's a really good movie. Like, Monsters is really, really good. It makes use of its of everything it got out of the budget. Like, it squeezed everything out of it. It made a really compelling story, some fantastic cinematography, believable characters, and it's a movie that I really wish I could unsee and then watch again for the first time, because I really enjoyed that movie. He went on to do fucking Godzilla, which is a remake of a remake of a remake of a remake.
Oh, of a remake, yeah.
Yeah, and the guy who made Safety Not Guaranteed, a neat little indie movie, went on to do Jurassic World, a remake of, well, a reboot or a rehashing or a sequel or whatever. So all the people who come out with these types of movies that are something unique and neat, they get given these blockbuster movies that are everything in here. Like, fucking Cinderella, James Bond, Mission Impossible, Pitch Perfect 2. Then you've got The Revenant, which is another one where it's just a director who's hot at the moment and decided to do his own thing. But then there's like Ant-Man, there's Hotel Transylvania 2. All of these things, like, they're all just remakes and rehashes, and that's alarming, I think, for the quality of movies. It's really good that, like, Netflix are getting in there and making original content. Yeah. Because
even Amazon Prime making original content as well.
Yeah, I think that's gonna sort of spring its own section of TV channels and TV movies and stuff into existence, and I think that that's actually really important for the future of cinema, because like, I don't want to sound alarmist or conservative or like I'm, there are a lot of great movies coming out all the time. I just don't feel like it's I don't feel like the amount of original movies coming out is proportional to what it should be. It seems like all the good young directors are getting gobbled up and given scripts for, massive
films.
And I don't feel like that's good. I think they should be able to do their own thing. That's why, like, a lot of cinema fans and stuff like that fucking hate Chris Nolan, and they think he's the worst, and he does the cutaway transition way too much, where the audio from the next scene filters in. I think Chris Nolan is fantastic, and I think it's really important to have a guy like him making movies, because he makes original popcorn movies for the thinking man, and that's something that really needs to be kept and really needs to be allowed to nurture and stuff like that. I know he did Batman, and that goes against what I said, but he went from Batman to Inception, which is a really original concept in Hollywood.
I think what's great about Amazon Prime and Netflix is that they're putting a lot of pressure on the studios, and anyone that knows the history of cinema and knows the history of Hollywood especially knows that it's been absolutely dominated by 6 studios since the 1940s. And because it used to be that there were 50, I think it was roughly 50 studios in Hollywood.
Yeah, and 50% of the directors in Hollywood were women until the 1950s or something like that. Fun fact.
Yeah, something like that. But then they kind of all just got absorbed into becoming these 6 that, we're very familiar with today. And I think it's great that Netflix and Amazon Prime are actually doing something where you can submit your screenplays and your ideas
No way.
to them for cash if they get made.
That's awesome.
Either percentage based or a flat fee.
That's really
based
really cool.
on the length of the script and like not complexity, but whether it's like a mini series, a TV series, or a feature length film.
That's really cool.
So I think that's wicked that they're tapping into kind of all this otherwise unseen talent, as it were, that wouldn't have the ability to kind of get in a room with a Hollywood producer or get in a room with a Hollywood script writer.
Yeah, and
I think it's great.
You do hear stories about movies being made because someone showed a script to someone at some party somewhere.
Yeah.
Like the guy who plays Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead became an actor because he was at some Hollywood party somewhere and impressed someone, whatever. But those are the minority. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Majority of people get in from other means and things like that. And I think they should really be pressing originality. I also think that it's interesting that there is this, like, there's a definite urge amongst executives and studios and stuff like that to really push dystopian fiction, and maybe not even dystopian, but there's been a huge focus on zombies over the last few years, which I'm all for. I will watch anything zombie related, but The Walking Dead is it's the highest grossing TV show of all time, and I find that to be crazy. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. It's like the most important TV show ever for AMC, and it's crazy because I just don't think that would have been the case 10 years ago.
No.
I don't know how zombies have slotted into this socially acceptable sort of place in like pop culture. Because although they were always a thing that were welcome in cinema and things like that, they were never mainstream. Like, zombies were never the biggest thing happening.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it's really odd that zombies, of all things, have popped up to be the one kind of paranormal thing that has captured like the heart of pop culture.
That's what I wonder, though. Is it a reflection on society? Like, is it this thing that people have where they just think everyone around them is a zombie? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it's the same basic theme with the dystopian thing where I'm the only one that's alert to this crazy thing that's happening. And I think The Walking Dead pushes all the buttons with the different generations, because I think the older generation watching probably relate to it because they feel like the younger generation are zombies with their heads in their phones, and the younger generation watching it are like, oh, well, everyone else is a zombie because they don't see the real things that are going on around here and stuff like that. So I think it's just happened into that section of pop culture where it's just become something that has grasped just several generation spans and held on and not letting go.
Yeah, I mean, what I think is interesting, and I heard this the other day, is that I think it was around 40% of Americans believe in ghosts. Like 50% of Americans in like 2000 said they believed in ghosts.
Yeah.
And it's zombies that kind of took hold as the paranormal, the paranormal kind of creature of choice.
It was vampires for a while.
Yeah, it really was. Like, Bram Stoker's Dracula and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Slayer, and then the whole Twilight thing.
Yeah. I think it's really odd.
Even True Blood there for a while.
Yeah. I would say that there's kind of Hollywood is ever so slightly behind pop culture.
Yeah.
Just by the nature of how long it takes to make a feature-length film.
Yeah, I agree.
Everything. Production can take anywhere from. It can take as little as 3 months. It can take as little as a month in some cases, but it can take up to a year and a half. as well. Plus you've got pre and post production as well included in that, which can easily make a film take a very long time.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that, you know, the zombies have still kept on.
Yeah, they've held on and they're not letting go.
Yeah, they're really, ironically enough, they're really not letting go.
Yeah.
I think we're coming towards the end of it though.
I kind of don't know. Like, there's a show called Z Nation that's on Sci-Fi, and it's sort of, it's sort of just, it looks, if you were to watch it, you would think that it's a kind of a greedy cash grab at the whole zombie thing.
Yeah.
But AV Club did an analysis on that show, and it's in, I don't know what season it's in, I think it might be in its 5th. I'm pretty sure it's definitely past its first 2. But it was this crazy, wacky thing fitting of, I think the Asylum produced it, maybe, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I know that it was wacky and bizarre and crazy and stupid and cliched and everything. But it's supposedly like really going somewhere, and it actually makes for relatively compelling viewing now. As in, it's gone from a 3 to a 7.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just gaining a foothold in. It's just been commissioned for, it's just been added to Netflix.
Yeah, it has actually. Yeah, I saw it the other day.
The most recent. Do you know what I find bizarre though is the overall quality of, like, The Walking Dead is not really that high. There's some fantastic scenes in it and some really just neat. I can't really explain what it is, but there's something about the way they do these neat little, like, because it comes from a comic book, and comic books have very awkward.
They have a lot of leniency as well in terms of kind of the physics and the realism to it.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Like, something that's cool in a comic book is not really explainable in real life. Like, there's a scene in The Walking Dead where these characters, Edith and Glenn, are, like, Edith is the awkward, troubled teenager that is obviously, like, relating to a certain section of, like, the younger audience in that show.
Yeah.
And then there's Glenn, who's this Korean guy who's just survived the whole way through, and he's great, and he's never had to kill anyone and stuff like that. But they find these balloons on the road, like green balloons, and the whole thing is like almost like a wash of black and white, and just grim, like, gritty elements of like decaying, rusting cars and like decaying buildings and stuff like that. And there's just this really cool shot from behind Glenn and Edith with the balloons floating up into the sky. And I can't really explain it, but you know that it's something that would look great in a comic book. But you'd never be able to explain why. And it was really cool seeing that brought to life. But at the same time, they just ended season 6 or 5 on a cliffhanger. And, like, you don't end a season on a cliffhanger. Like, that's not a thing. A high-quality show should absolutely not be ending on a cliffhanger. Like, that's like a mistake that you do.
But... yeah, that's the thing, and a lot of people will hate the fact that it has ended on a cliffhanger, and I know that I hated that the 5th season of Suits had a halfway break that ended on a cliffhanger, and so many seasons of various TV shows end on a cliffhanger. But I think this again will boil down to kind of the studio going. And this is, I don't know if this is just me being very cynical, but you know, you hear a lot about the studios told people to add this and take that out and change this based on what they thought would straight make more money. And it definitely sounds like something where they've gone, but this will guarantee that people will at least watch the first episode of next season.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think
straight up,
like, there's a lot of competition for these types of studios as well. But honestly, Suits, I can accept it from Suits, because Suits isn't a top tier show. Like, it looks slick, but it's not. It's got
really
bad
not,
writing.
no.
It's got bad characters. It's
quite as we were discussing last time.
Yeah, it's quite clearly filmed in fucking Canada as well, and it's supposed to be
Vancouver.
New York. But like, I can accept it from Suits, because that's not something that I'd ever. But like The Walking Dead, like the highest grossing thing ever. Like, fuck off, ending your season on a cliffhanger. To be honest. I was going to ask, because I feel like the fairy tales and the way they were adapted into other fairy tales is interesting. And nowadays, I think books get adapted into great TV shows and good movies. I feel like TV series that come from books are better than movies, and I think TV series are replacing books because they're very long. You can really flesh out a character. You can tell lots of different stories about that character. I think TV series are the new books, and I don't like movies are the new movies, I guess, or movies are the old movies rather, because that's what seems to be the case here. But sometimes they do movies, like they do old movies better than they were before, and I'll ask you about that a little bit later. But what do you think about books being adapted to movies and how it never seems to work?
The problem with books, I suppose the problem with movies is that they're simply just not long enough.
Yeah, I really think that's it.
And it's also to do with one thing that's never really spoken about when talking about why books never make good movies is the pacing of it. You can, no matter how quickly you read a book, so, it doesn't matter how quickly you actually read it, you're reading it at your pace. So you're reading it and gaining an understanding all in kind of this time frame that fits you, as it were.
Yeah.
So you're kind of gaining this understanding, you're building empathy, and you've got more time with kind of the characters to build an understanding and empathy, or to build whatever emotion that the author wants you to build in relation to the characters. With a film, you've got very much a first act within the first half an hour. You'll have the second act, the twist, and the end.
Yeah, most movies are the same.
Yeah, like if you can look out for it, obviously if they're very well made, you won't be able to see, or there just won't be a twist, as it were, or you won't be able to see it happen.
Yeah,
it'll be more gradual, or it'll just be better done. And that's one of the reasons that like someone like M. Night Shyamalan is very cursed in the in the critical world. It's just the fact that the twist comes and it slaps you in the face and goes, time for the third act.
Yeah. M. Night Shyamalan is a terrific director, but a bad writer. And I know that he wrote like The Sixth Sense like 100 times before he found out how it ended himself. Like, he just decided that and was like, that's it. Whereas I think after that, the studio were like, oh man, you've got to make another movie in like 2 years or whatever. Here's your budget. And I think he was like, ah, shit, it's got to do what I've done before. That's my blueprint for success. So that's where the whole twist thing. Apparently Devil was a pretty good movie though. I never watched it.
No.
But he is a good director.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just say I think it's interesting that David Fincher, I think, is one of the best directors in the world. But the way he made a good movie out of Fight Club and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and like to a lesser degree, the Zodiac movie, I know it's not based on a novel, but it is based on something that we've added a narrative to and already exists in public consciousness, so it's not quite the same thing, but I think he just does great adaptations of things. I think like that's his real talent, is that he's able to understand his source material and build it into his own thing. Like, because David Fincher is just, the way he makes his movies and everything is so compelling. Like, he's so fucking good, and he adds so many layers to his movies that you wouldn't really understand unless you watch them over and over and over. But like Fight Club is very long, and The Girl with Dragon Tattoo is very long, and in fact Zodiac is very long as well. He makes long movies, is what I'm trying to say. But he's just really, really good at doing it, and some directors are just not really good at doing it.
Yeah. I think it's really easy for a film to be too long and get boring, or for not to be long enough and not to flesh anywhere near enough stuff out. And don't forget that The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Fincher one, was a remake of the Swedish. I think it's the Swedish version because it was by a Swedish author.
It was Swedish, yeah.
So even that's a remake of a remake.
Copy of a copy. Boom,
yeah,
Fincher
exactly.
reference within a Fincher reference. Fucking get in. I think Danny Boyle did a good adaptation of Trainspotting, but a bad adaptation of The Beach. so I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah,
haven't
that's
seen
it,
his
yeah.
like his Steve Jobs thing. I haven't seen.
No, I haven't seen the Steve Jobs thing either.
That was definitely rushed to capitalize
Yeah.
on, the like what was
Yeah.
happening in public consciousness as well. Fuck that
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
What? There was a movie I was thinking of just then. The best movie I've ever seen is the best adaptation of a book.
Yeah.
Is The Road, the Cormac McCarthy book, and
Okay.
it's just like exactly what I wanted it to be. Like exactly.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's I don't know. You have to be a certain type of person to watch The Road. I think I might have mentioned it on the podcast before, but
Yeah, I think you have done.
when I watched The Road, I did nothing but think about The Road for the next 2.5 years of my life. I think I thought about it every day. It was the most. I think it was maybe even. I find it interesting that Cormac McCarthy even wrote that book, to be honest, because it seems like such a non-Cormac McCarthy thing to do. But also, it was from, I think The Road, the book, is from the early 2000s, and post-apocalyptic fiction wasn't even anywhere near its peak, or maybe The Road was in some way the catalyst for it, because The Road doesn't have a very high IMDb or critic score. And I think if it came out now, it would have an immense one. So
yeah. See, you've reminded me, unfortunately, of the worst book adaptation that I've ever seen.
What's that?
I've mentioned it several times, and I will forever mention it. I love Bill Bryson books. Specifically, one of my favourites is called A Walk in the Woods, where he walks the Appalachian Trail. Most of it anyway. It was recently adapted into a film with, I believe, Robert Redbridge playing the part of Bill Bryson. And I went to see it because I'm a massive fan of Bill Bryson. I was surrounded by people 50 years my senior, who I believe is his rough target audience anyway, really.
Yeah.
And the film was atrocious.
Really?
It was awful. I think it's the lowest score I've given anything on IMDb.
Really?
Yeah, it was absolutely sinfully boring.
Oh my.
It missed the mark of Bill Bryson's humour completely. They made some very feeble attempts to bring it into the 21st century as well.
That's poor.
And yeah, it was poor all around. And it really I've never felt disappointment like it.
Yeah.
Apart from, grades at school and
First time you sex.
Yeah, and a million other things I could list, actually, come to think of it. But yeah, there's nothing actually more disappointing than seeing a book that you love ruined in another medium that you love.
Yeah, that's true.
Emotionally painful.
I think a great guy for making great movies is Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
I think that's the most obvious thing I've ever said. I think a type of dairy food is cheese.
I think the water is wet.
Yeah, but what I meant by that
please do elaborate.
was he has done some adaptations of things that already exist, and he has improved them and changed them and given them a suitable narrative and made for some incredibly compelling viewing, starting with probably, I'm sure there's, Raging Bull is kind of an adaptation, but Wise Guy is a book written by Nicholas Pileggi, who it's called Wise Guy. It's about Henry Hill. Nicholas was he might still be alive, a journalist though, who talked about Henry Hill basically and his entire life. And Martin Scorsese was like, all right, sweet, gonna make a movie on this and call it Goodfellas and stuff. And the Henry Hill character in the movie is not the same guy in real life. They're not the same or whatever, but Goodfellas is a fucking ridiculously good movie. I've seen it, I know every single line in it off by heart and stuff like that. I have in-jokes with friends that are just me and one of my friends, David Wicks, he's the guy who wrote the book The Raven that I shouted out in one of the episodes, which a lot of you guys actually bought. So like, thank you sincerely for doing that. But like, we can just say to each other like, everybody loved Stacks, and like know that that's just a tiny bit of dialogue about Samuel L. Jackson, who is in Goodfellas, that most people don't even know that he was in Goodfellas.
Yeah.
But he was Stacks who drove the getaway van in the Lufthansa heist and stuff like that. And yeah, just, I don't know, for me it's like the most quotable movie. It's the greatest movie. It's so good, and that's an adaptation. And to flesh out the point a little bit more, like he's done adaptations of things like The Wolf of Wall Street and Catch Me If You Can, and you know, he's just a great guy for bringing stuff like that to life and not having it seem like a chore to watch because of the length.
Yeah. I think if you do book adaptations right and you include all of the, I think that's the challenge, is that picking all of the right bits to include in the film.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can't include everything, depending on the length of the book, of course.
Yeah.
You really can't, for the most part, include everything. That's why they split the last two Harry Potters, the last Harry Potter book, into two films.
Or was that a cash grab?
A little bit of both, let's be honest.
I can tell you the fucking Hunger Games thing was absolutely a cash grab. They did not.
The Hunger Games is 100% a cash grab.
Yeah. The Hunger Games is an adaptation of Battle Royale, which is a fantastic book and a fantastic movie. Have you seen Battle Royale? Have we spoke about it?
Yes, we have. I still haven't seen it yet.
Oh, right. Man, you need to watch that movie.
I mentioned this earlier. My watch list on IMDb is 250 films long. I am very behind on films that I should have been watching.
Is there any way you could prioritize it?
I can do, yeah.
I think it just looks, it's an amazing movie. I love it. Don't ever be put off by the fact that a movie has subtitles. You are able to read and you are able to watch movies, and there is no reason why it should be difficult to do both at the same time. I think a lot of people just feel like it's kind of effort to watch a movie with subtitles, and that's not been the case in my experience every time I've done it.
Yeah, I sometimes find myself putting on subtitles for movies that are in English.
Same, yeah.
Because it doesn't bother me in the slightest, and sometimes it's nice to be able to catch certain things that are being said that I might, maybe miss because I'm not paying 100% attention.
What do you think is, like, you know how the Brothers Grimm had their own version of Little Red Riding Hood and stuff like that? What do you think is your favourite, or maybe the best example of a director being inspired by an older work and making their own thing out of it? If you know what I mean? Like, I'll give mine straight up, which is
go for it.
Sort of a low-key shout, I think, but I saw the Event Horizon a while ago and thought it was an absolutely garbage movie. A lot of things in it they did pretty well, but I found that Danny Boyle took every element of what they did well in Event Horizon and built on it to make a much better movie in Sunshine, which I think is a criminally underrated movie. I think that movie is so fucking good. And it's basically just a really good Event Horizon. You know what I mean? Like, and it wouldn't have been made without Event Horizon, but that's what it is, and it's just very good. The techniques used in that, and the way the mood shifts at a certain point and stuff like that. Without ruining too much of it, it's really a movie that you need to see to understand. But it's great, and it's pretty much my favorite example of someone just being like, yeah, this is good, but this is better, and then making their own thing out of it.
Yeah. I think, and this is the first thing that kind of stood out to me in my mind, and I kind of have this shameless kind of love for Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, really?
I think it's a really enjoyable movie. I think it's a really enjoyable. It's a bit different, and it's a different way of telling the story.
That's the
without
Claire Danes
actually.
one.
No, the Leonardo DiCaprio and
Claire Danes.
Is it Claire Danes?
Yeah, it is.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I think she was like 17 when they filmed it as well.
Yeah, they were both super young, but so Baz Luhrmann, the director, went to the studio and said, "I want to remake Romeo and Juliet," and they went, okay, why? And he went, because I want to do it with all of the original, like, wording, all of the original language from Shakespeare. And I went, okay, but why? And he went, because it's going to be in the modern day. And they went, no, it won't work. He was like, but when they reference their swords, they're going to actually have guns, and when they, all of this kind of stuff. And they were like, no, do it in the modern day, do them talking normally. Nobody will watch it talking Shakespeare. It won't work.
Yeah, because no one's ever done a modern
exactly.
Romeo.
Yeah, exactly. So Baz Luhrmann was like, no, fuck you, I'm going to prove you wrong. He called up Leonardo DiCaprio. Leo was like shooting something else in Australia at the time, so Baz Luhrmann flew out to Australia, hired a couple of extras, and took a camcorder out, just like a cheap $200 camcorder, gave DiCaprio the lines, filmed this short little scene with him and these extras that he just picked up for like the day to film with, took it back to them, and they were like, oh yeah, shit, it works, doesn't it? And he was like, yeah, it does. And then they made it, and it's great.
That's pretty
cool.
cool.
It's a great little film. But that's one of my favourite stories about the fact that, the studios are almost, not always right.
Yeah.
And that sometimes things like that just have to be made.
Yeah.
Have to be done.
I quite like that movie. I don't feel like the whole swords thing worked. I know that like the brand of gun is sword.
Yeah.
I liked the ecstasy pill with the love heart on it. I thought that was a neat little touch.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's I don't know. I think like it's fine and it's like neat that they did that, but I don't think it had the effect it was supposed to, if you know what I mean.
I enjoyed it as a film, and it's like the first thing that popped into my head.
Yeah. I know. Well, like I picked Sunshine. I don't think Sunshine is like a Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Pinnacle.
There's also I wanted to give a special shout out to my buddy Andrew Garfield for his movie Never Let Me Go with Carey Mulligan, which is an adaptation of the Kazuo Ishiguro book.
Okay.
It's really good. I don't know why I said Andrew Garfield is my buddy. I really think that he is honestly the most overrated actor in the world. Like I don't know what it is. He does the same expressions in every, and I know other actors do that, right? But say you say someone like Christian Bale, for example, or Hugh Jackman. These are guys who have proven themselves in movies to a point where they can pick what roles they want. Andrew Garfield hasn't. He's been the same guy in every movie he's in. Like I think Boy A is like a really cool movie or whatever, but he's still just playing a dumb teenager. Like I don't know, whatever, irrelevant. Never Let Me Go is great because he's kind of like the dumb thing is perfect for that role anyway.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie that I think everyone should watch. It's also got Donald Gleason in it.
Oh really?
And Keira Knightley.
Okay.
Great movie. Yeah, and that's an adaptation of a book. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I mean, there's absolutely tons of adaptations of books.
Yeah.
And there's literally millions of them. I think that. And one thing that I really like is that you can email Stephen King, and say you're a student and you need a script or you need, something like that. You can email Stephen King or his agent or whoever deals with it, but you can pay them $1 to license and to have the ability to use any of his short stories, to make them and use them in your film.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you just pay like $1 because he's like, well, why shouldn't students be able to have decent scripts?
Plus, he's written like 500,000.
So many.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's literally at this point he's written so many he's giving them away.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's it's really cool to hate on him and stuff, but like you have got to respect like the fucking amount of high quality things he has produced.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually awesome. Stephen King is kind of the man.
Yeah.
In a way. But in a way, aren't we all the man?
We all are the man. We all are the men. And some of you women. Do many women actually even watch this?
I don't think so.
No. No, neither do I somehow.
I know, actually, I do know of at least 2 that do. So, my
Good lord.
mum and
Can't even say my mum. My mum has no idea about this.
oh, really? What does she
not at
think
all.
you're doing in your room?
She has no idea. I don't live with them at the moment, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Who do you think, who would you like to play you in an adaptation of your life?
Oh my god, someone not as boring as me. I genuinely have no idea. Who bears even a slight resemblance to me?
Well, on your driving license photo, it's the Finchmeister from American Pie.
Oh yeah, it really is. Yeah, he could definitely play. If there was a biopic made that was called The Awkward Teenage Years,
Yeah.
and it included all of my awkward teenage years, then it's definitely whoever plays the Shermanator.
That's
Is
what
that
I
actually
meant.
it? Yep,
Yeah.
Shermanator.
Yeah, Finch is the
Yep, unfortunately, so unless he's grown a ginger beard and gained a bit of weight, like muscle-wise, he could play me later on in life as well. You never know.
I think Conor McGregor would play me.
Yeah.
I just feel like my peak physical condition and like my sort of just raw upper body strength,
Yeah.
tied in with my sort of hybrid style fighting techniques.
Yes.
I just think that Conor McGregor probably is the closest resemblance to me, especially now that he's in the higher weight division. So I'd say I think he would do a good job of portraying me.
Yeah. Kick a few heads in, stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, like he's not quite as menacing or as sort of attractive as I am. I don't think he's got that sort of wholesale accessibility like I do for the mainstream. But like I think I'd give him a shot, and I think he would do all right. I'd say.
Yeah.
I think it'd be moderately convincing for Hollywood anyway.
Yeah, I think actually on reflection, I think Ben Affleck could do a good white boy with a ginger beard. Yeah. I think he'd do an alright job.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah. Definitely. Shout out to Ben Affleck.
Yeah, shout out to Ben Affleck. He's white, so he's Ben Affleck.
That's true. Poor Ben Affleck.
Indeed. I think, and on that note.
Yeah, oh no, this is over, pal.
Oh yeah. Thanks for listening.
I don't think I'm going to be calling this Creepy Fairy Tales.
No, we went ever so slightly off topic.
So that was our episode on fairy tales, and also like half the episode was not about fairy tales at all. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We opened with a song called Ghost Riders in the Sky, which was a cover of a Johnny Cash song by a band called Outlaws, and we're ending it with a song called Enter Sandman by Motorhead, which is a cover of the Metallica version. I used covers as every song in the episode because we sort of talked about how Hollywood is rehashing things, and the creepy fairy tale thing was kind of a theme about how things are built on other stories that already exist. So it felt appropriate to use covers, and all the covers that I did use have some sort of fairy tale elements to them. Enter Sandman is about the Sandman, which is a folkloric sort of villain who visits you in your sleep. Ghost Riders in the Sky is about some scary cowboys that ride through the sky and stuff like that. And Lullaby by Editors / The Cure is just a fucked up song. I would really love to know what you all thought of that song when you listened to it, because I have a feeling it would freak a lot of people out. But that was the episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave a like. If you're enjoying what we're doing with the Midnight Hour, leave a like. Leave a nice comment. Leave me money. Nah, not really. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. I've been El De Niro. Fuck this.
Something wrong, shut the light. Any thoughts that hate, and they all look so white. Dreams of war, dreams of liars, dreams of dragons fire, and the things that will fight. Sleep with one eye open, gripping your pillow tight. Exit enter night. Take my hand, we're off to never, never land. Now I lay me down to sleep. Pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, pray the Lord my soul to take. Hush, little baby, don't say a word, and never mind the noise you heard. It's just the beast under your bed, in your closet, in your head.